Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to a brand new deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we are plunging headfirst into the very latest headlines from India, specifically from June 22nd, 2025.
Quite a day's worth of news to get through.
Absolutely. Our mission, as always, is to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight from a truly diverse stack of sources, everything from high-stakes geopolitics and cutting-edge technology to crucial domestic policy shifts, and even the nail-biting drama of a test cricket match.
Covers a lot of ground.
It does. And you won't just get the surface-level news. We're going beyond that, exploring what these headlines really mean, why they matter, and what surprising facts might be hidden within them.
Sort of reading between the lines.
Exactly. Think of it as your shortcut to being truly well-informed about the pulse of India today.
What truly stands out from the information you've provided is the sheer breadth of topics, painting a rich tapestry, really, of a nation grappling with global challenges, pushing technological boundaries,
Right.
and navigating incredibly complex internal dynamics.
Right. It definitely feels like a pivotal moment in many ways.
Our goal for you, the listener, is to help connect the dots between these seemingly disparate events, provide that broader context, and ultimately help you understand the so what of each major development.
Yeah, the why it matters part.
Precisely. India is a country on the move, and these headlines reflect that dynamism in full, giving us a real snapshot of its trajectory.
And speaking of dynamism, let's kick off with a headline that sent, well, significant shockwaves through the region. India's stance on the Indus Waters Treaty.
Ah, yes, that was a big one.
Source 2 tells us that India has permanently ceased water supply to Pakistan from the Indus River, according to none other than Home Minister Amit Shah.
A very definitive statement.
He declared that the 1960 agreement with Islamabad will never be reinstated. That word, permanent, calling the cessation permanent. That's quite a move, isn't it, considering this is a decades-old, incredibly vital international treaty?
It really is. How do we interpret such a unilateral declaration?
Well, that's the question.
This is more than just a policy adjustment. Shah's strong statement reflects a deeply hardened and recalibrated stance by New Delhi on cross-border water sharing.
Hardened is the word.
Definitely. The source explicitly connects this decision to a deadly incident in Indian-administered Kashmir, where 26 civilians were killed, framing it as a direct response to security concerns.
Okay, so there's a stated catalyst.
Yes, but while that's the stated catalyst, it also signals a broader shift in India's approach, prioritizing its domestic needs and perceived security interests above established bilateral agreements.
Right.
The use of permanent here isn't just rhetoric, it suggests a fundamental change in how India views its transboundary resource management with Pakistan. It's a signal.
And the immediate consequences for Pakistan. The source highlights that Pakistan heavily relies on the Indus for about 80% of its agricultural land.
80%, that's huge.
Not to mention its daily water needs, and now faces a serious water crisis.
Yeah.
This sounds, frankly, existential for them.
It does. What are the broader ramifications of such a move, beyond just the immediate water scarcity?
That's what I was wondering.
The implications for Pakistan are, without exaggeration, profound. Pakistan has publicly expressed hopes for engaging in dialogue to preserve the treaty,
Which makes sense, given their dependence.
which underscores the gravity of their situation. Crucially, they are also exploring a legal challenge against India's withdrawal under international law.
So international courts might get involved.
It seems likely they'll try. This unilateral action by India raises a critical question for global diplomacy. What precedent does it set for other international water-sharing agreements around the globe?
That's a really important point.
If a major nation can simply declare a vital treaty never reinstated, it could potentially erode the very foundations of international legal frameworks and stability, particularly concerning shared natural resources.
Undermining trust in these agreements.
Exactly. Moreover, given the Indus River's absolutely vital role in Pakistan's ecosystem and economy, a prolonged water crisis could significantly destabilize the region.
How so?
Well, impacting food security, economic development, potentially leading to internal unrest, and even impacting regional peace. It transforms a resource issue into a significant geopolitical flashpoint.
Wow. And such a stark reminder of the historical significance of that 1960 treaty. It was seen as one of the few successful post-partition agreements between the two countries, wasn't it? Lasting over half a century.
It was a rare example of cooperation in many ways.
The source also points out India's internal infrastructure project redirecting that water via a newly constructed canal to Rajasthan.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't just about cutting off Pakistan. It seems like a strategic shift towards self-reliance, moving away from transboundary cooperation.
Exactly. It signals a strategic shift in resource management, where domestic allocation and national security take undeniable
The
precedence.
focus turns inward.
Right. This kind of significant infrastructure investment reinforces the message that India is prioritizing its own internal development and resource security, moving towards greater autonomy in water management.
Not a very clear strategic pivot.
Yes, suggesting a long-term vision that seems, well, independent of its neighbors' needs under this treaty.
That unilateral move on water rights certainly underscores India's evolving assertiveness, maybe, on its borders.
Assertiveness is one way to put it.
And on the global stage, we're seeing another complex diplomatic tightrope as India navigates its stance, or perhaps lack thereof, on the escalating Iran-Israel conflict. Our sources, specifically Source 4, highlight that Congress leader Sonia Gandhi has voiced strong concern over India's silence amid this escalating Iran-Israel conflict.
Yes, I saw that reported in an international daily.
She called it disturbing and a departure from India's historical diplomatic posture. Her argument seems quite strong. India enjoys strategic ties with both nations.
Which it does, complex ties with both.
But neutrality, she argues, shouldn't equate to passivity in the face of what she calls unprovoked aggression. What's her core point about India's legacy and its role here?
Well, Gandhi's reasoning seems deeply rooted in India's foreign policy heritage, particularly its traditional non-alignment stance.
The NAM legacy.
Precisely. She explicitly referenced Iran's long-standing relationship and support for India in the past, while, acknowledging India's strategic ties with Israel today.
So balancing act.
Very much so. She advocates for what she terms a moral and balanced foreign policy that actively condemns violence and advocates for peace.
Not just staying silent.
Right. Her perspective suggests that India's historical role as a proponent of non-alignment and peaceful mediation places it in a unique position to be a calming voice, not just a silent observer.
Which raises the question.
Indeed, this begs the question, how does India effectively balance its current pragmatic strategic interests, which often involve maintaining good relations with multiple, sometimes conflicting global powers, with its historical legacy of non-alignment and peace-building?
It's a fundamental tension, isn't it?
Absolutely. It defines a significant part of its contemporary foreign policy challenges.
And she goes further, saying that this silence undermines India's moral authority and international image. What does she mean by that, especially with reports of mounting civilian casualties?
Her statement reflects a demand for what she terms principled engagement rather than detached neutrality.
In a bold
engagement.
Yes. The argument is that by remaining silent in the face of significant human suffering and escalating conflict, India risks appearing indifferent or, perhaps worse, maybe even complicit in the eyes of the international community.
Perception matters.
Immensely. This isn't just an internal political critique. It's framed as a global call to action. It suggests India should leverage its unique position to promote stability and humanitarian values.
So use its influence.
Exactly. In the broader context, Gandhi's public statement injects fresh urgency into both national and global discussions about India's role in mediating geopolitical tensions, especially given those tragic mounting civilian casualties.
It forces a conversation. It does. This compels us to consider the real-world pros and cons of India taking a more vocal stance. On one hand, it could genuinely enhance its global moral standing and diplomatic influence.
Reld soft power.
Potentially. But on the other hand, it could risk alienating either Iran or Israel, both of whom are key strategic partners in different capacities.
A very delicate balancing act.
Incredibly delicate. It really reveals the complexities of modern non-alignment, or perhaps neo-non-alignment.
It certainly brings us back to that foundational element of India's foreign policy, the non-alignment movement. Historically, that meant navigating incredibly complex geopolitical landscapes without taking overt sides. This headline certainly highlights the challenges of that approach in today's, well, highly polarized world.
It absolutely does. The global landscape has changed significantly since the heyday of the non-alignment movement,
True.
And India's economic and strategic interests have diversified enormously. This incident and the critique from a prominent opposition figure forces a reevaluation.
Of whether that old model still fits.
Exactly. Whether non-alignment in its traditional, perhaps more detached sense, is still the most effective path for India to wield influence and maintain its desired international image as a responsible global power. It might suggest a need for reinterpretation, perhaps a more proactive, principled engagement, as Gandhi put it.
Interesting. So we've dissected India's complex external balancing act. But equally vital, and perhaps even more foundational, are the internal dynamics shaping its vast democracy,
Absolutely.
particularly visible in recent debates around electoral integrity. Our next headline from Source 5 puts us right in the middle of a domestic political firestorm. The Election Commission of India, the ECI,
Right.
has rejected Congress MP Rahul Gandhi's demand for public access to CCTV footage from Maharashtra polling booths, specifically footage recorded after 5 p.m.
And the voter rolls, too, right?
Yes, along with comprehensive, machine-readable voter rolls. Gandhi, now the leader of the opposition, has come out swinging, criticizing the ECI's unsigned evasive notes and demanding full transparency.
Strong words.
What are the serious accusations he's making here that are generating so much heat?
Well, Gandhi has indeed made very serious and specific accusations. He alleged what he described as a five-step election rigging method.
5 steps. What does that involve?
He claims it involves tactics like using fake voters, inflating turnout numbers beyond what's plausible, and selective tampering with data to influence outcomes.
Wow.
And he didn't stop there. He issued a stark warning of similar manipulation potentially recurring in the upcoming Bihar elections, likening the entire process to match fixing.
Match fixing.
His words, saying it endangers Indian democracy. These are not light allegations. They strike at the very heart of public trust in the democratic process itself.
No kidding. And the ECI's dismissal of these allegations as unsubstantiated and absurd, that sounds very definitive. But democracy is absurd, really, a sufficient response when the leader of the opposition likens the electoral process to match fixing.
That's a crucial point, isn't it? What's the real consequence when such a powerful institution responds with what some might see as a dismissal rather than, say, a detailed, transparent rebuttal?
Exactly.
Well, the ECI's response has been equally forceful. They dismiss the allegations as unsubstantiated and completely absurd, and they referenced a prior public communication from December 2024.
What did that say?
They asserted in that communication that all relevant information had already been shared with the Indian National Congress. So they're saying, we've already addressed this.
Okay.
But this direct confrontation highlights a fundamental tension. How do we balance the crucial need for public accountability in democratic elections with legitimate concerns around legal confidentiality and data privacy?
Especially with voter rolls and footage.
Right.
Bro.
Especially when dealing with sensitive information like that. When a significant political figure makes such claims, a simple dismissal, however forceful, can sometimes inadvertently fuel public skepticism rather than allay it.
It could backfire.
Potentially.
So what does this ongoing confrontation signal about the tensions between opposition leaders and India's institutional bodies like the ECI?
Well, it seems to signal.
And why is access to things like voter rolls and that post-5 p.m. footage so crucial for electoral integrity in the first place, from the opposition's perspective?
Right. Two key questions there. Firstly, this confrontation signals a deeper, ongoing struggle over the perceived independence and transparency of India's democratic institutions. That's clear.
Trust in institutions.
Exactly. Secondly, from the opposition's viewpoint, access to raw, verifiable data like comprehensive voter rolls and unedited CCTV footage is fundamental for independently verifying the fairness of the elections.
They want to check the math themselves.
Essentially, yes. They believe it's essential for preventing and detecting any potential fraud, especially given past disputes over voter turnout figures and persistent concerns about digital tampering.
So it's about verification.
For them, it's about holding the ECI accountable and ensuring public trust in the system, in the broader context. What's fascinating here is this debate has reignited significant public discussion over electoral transparency and accountability.
It's back in the spotlight.
Very much so. Ultimately, how public trust in the electoral process is maintained, or indeed eroded, has profound implications for the stability and legitimacy of any democracy.
It's foundational.
Absolutely. When a significant segment of the population or political leadership questions the integrity of the vote, it can undermine the very foundation of governance and potentially lead to widespread discontent.
It's a classic tension, really, between external oversight and the autonomous functioning of an institution, played out on a very public and heated stage.
Very heated, yes.
From the mechanics of elections, let's look at how political parties are strategically appealing to voters, particularly in the lead-up to an election. Moving on to Bihar, Source 6 brings us news of a significant policy announcement. Chief Minister Nitish Kumar has announced a significant hike in the state's Social Security pension scheme.
Ah, the pension hike.
Yes, effective from July. The monthly pension for elderly citizens, persons with disabilities, and widowed women will increase from 400
Which isn't a lot.
to a substantial euro-pound 100.
That's a big jump, more than double.
It is. This revision benefits over 1.09 crore individuals. That's 10.9 million people. A huge number.
Massive beneficiary pool.
Kumar even emphasized timely support, with increased pensions credited to accounts on the 10th of each month. How does framing the elderly as a precious part of society, as the source mentions, translate into a tangible political strategy here, especially just ahead of elections?
Well, this announcement has a fascinating dual nature, doesn't it?
How so?
On one hand, it's undeniably a significant welfare measure. It's designed to provide tangible support to some of the most vulnerable populations: the elderly, persons with disabilities, widowed women who often live on the margins.
Real help for real people.
Absolutely. But on the other hand, and perhaps more overtly given the timing, it's a very calculated political maneuver ahead of the upcoming assembly elections.
The timing is key.
Seems so. The ruling Janata Dal, United, and its NDA partners are clearly aiming to consolidate support among these key demographic groups. By more than doubling the pension payout, they are attempting to frame themselves as responsive and socially responsible,
Looking after the vulnerable.
directly appealing to a very large and influential voter base. This begs the question, though. How do voters generally perceive such significant pre-election welfare announcements?
Yeah, do they see it as genuine concern?
Or as transparent attempts to secure votes? Or maybe, realistically, a bit of both. It's always hard to tell definitively.
And what kind of direct and wide-reaching impact will this more than doubling of the pension payout actually have, particularly on the rural and urban poor, and especially elderly women who are mentioned as a large segment of beneficiaries? Like you said, 400 might not go far, but 1,100 could make a real difference.
Oh, the direct impact for millions of beneficiaries is indeed significant. For many, an increase from 400 to 1,100 is substantial. It will undoubtedly improve their daily lives, providing more financial stability for basic needs like food, medicine, or even just, greater autonomy.
A bit more breathing room.
Exactly. It directly addresses very real economic vulnerabilities, particularly among the rural poor and elderly women who often lack other sources of income.
Okay, so the welfare aspect is real.
Definitely. In the broader context, this move positions the JDU as proactive in addressing Social Security. It allows them to claim direct credit for tangible improvements in people's lives just before an election.
Puts the opposition in a tough spot.
It does. Simultaneously, it puts opposition parties like the Rashtriya Janata Dal, RJD, and Congress in a challenging position. They now have to build a compelling counter-narrative.
What kind of narrative?
Perhaps focusing on broader governance issues, long-term economic development, or alternative inclusion strategies, rather than simply criticizing the welfare measure itself, which can be politically risky.
Hard to argue against giving money to the poor.
Very hard. This also raises a critical long-term question, though. What are the fiscal implications of such a significant and widespread increase for the state's budget? How sustainable is it over time?
Good point. 1,100 for nearly 11 million people every month adds up fast.
It certainly does. While beneficial in the short term for recipients, sustained increases of this magnitude require careful and robust financial planning by the state government.
It's a very common political play, isn't it? Deliver tangible benefits to a large voter base just before elections, and then let the opposition try to argue against it.
A time-tested strategy in many democracies.
Right. From domestic policy, let's explore India's ambitions on the cutting edge of technology and strategic independence. Switching gears completely now, our next story from Source 7 takes us to the final frontier: space.
Always exciting developments from ISRO.
Indeed. ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization, is preparing for SpaceX-2. It's described as an ambitious satellite docking mission, aiming to perform this complex operation in an elliptical orbit.
Elliptical. Okay, that's the key difference.
The source calls this a significant technical leap from its earlier success in a circular orbit. And it notes that docking is essential for future missions like Chandrayaan-4
The next moon mission.
and India's planned Parathia Antarctic Station, its own space station.
Right, docking is fundamental for assembly and servicing in space.
So before we get to SpaceX-2, What did their first mission, SpaceX-1, prove for them? What national milestone did it achieve?
Well, the inaugural SpaceX-1 mission was a monumental success. ISRO successfully docked two 220-kilogram satellites in a 470-kilometer circular orbit back on January 16th.
Okay, circular orbit. Got it.
That initial experiment validated critical technologies, things like shared power systems between the docked satellites, precise rendezvous capabilities, and composite control algorithms.
Foundational stuff.
Absolutely. What truly made this remarkable, though, is that it positioned India as only the fourth country in the world.
Only the fourth.
Yes. After the US, Russia, and China to successfully demonstrate in-orbit docking, that proved India's foundational capability in a highly complex and essential space maneuver. It put them in a very elite club.
That's huge. So if they've already proven it in a circular orbit, what makes SpaceX-2, with its elliptical orbit, such a dramatically greater challenge? You mentioned elliptical was key. My understanding is that circular orbits are relatively stable, right?
They are, relatively speaking.
But elliptical ones, that sounds like a whole different ballgame.
It truly is a whole different ballgame. The challenge of SpaceX-2 is immense, precisely because docking in an elliptical orbit involves constantly shifting velocities and trajectories.
Now, explain that a bit more.
Imagine trying to hit a moving bullseye while both you and the bullseye are speeding up, slowing down, and changing altitude constantly.
Right, not easy.
Unlike a stable circular orbit where the spacecraft's speed relative to Earth is relatively consistent, elliptical dynamics demand real-time recalculations for alignment and rendezvous.
Constant adjustments.
Yes. This means ISRO's team isn't just correcting for one set of parameters. They're performing continuous dynamic recalibrations for propulsion and attitude control, accounting for subtle gravitational shifts and orbital eccentricities at every single second of the rendezvous.
Wow, the computing power needed for that.
Exactly. This begs the question, why is elliptical orbit docking so crucial for lunar missions like Chandrayaan-4 and future deep space endeavors?
Yeah, why go through the extra difficulty?
It's because spacecraft often utilize elliptical Earth orbits to gain momentum like a gravitational slingshot before heading towards the moon or other planetary bodies. Mastering docking in that kind of orbit allows for far more efficient and flexible mission designs.
Ah, so it enables more ambitious missions.
Precisely. It enables India to undertake more ambitious deep space explorations with fewer fuel requirements, which is a major constraint in space travel.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, I understand the first docking, SpaceX-1, was deliberately slow. The source said it halted at multiple checkpoints, going from 5 kilometers down to just 3 meters before connecting. Very cautious.
Extremely cautious, yes. Standard procedure for a first attempt at something so complex.
How did ISRO achieve faster, smoother redocking and follow-up tests after that initial cautious approach? They must have learned a lot.
They absolutely did. After that initial cautious approach of SpaceX-1, which was really designed to gather critical data and validate foundational principles, ISRO built upon that success.
How?
They meticulously analyzed the data, refined their algorithms, calibrated custom sensors they developed. This allowed them to develop more sophisticated control systems that could achieve faster and smoother redocking in subsequent tests. Essentially, they learn by doing, very effectively.
Iterative improvement.
Exactly. And SpaceX-2 will build directly on these learnings, pushing the envelope even further into the elliptical domain. If we connect this to the bigger picture, mastering elliptical orbit docking could unlock advanced mission architectures.
Like what?
Things like launching separate modules for a space station or a large spacecraft and assembling them in space, or coordinating complex orbital operations that were previously out of reach.
Building bigger things in orbit.
Yes. This capability further cements ISRO's growing sophistication in space technology and its position as a serious global space power.
So what does this mean for India's future as a space power? Big picture.
It means greater autonomy, the ability to undertake more complex and ambitious missions without relying on international partners for every single aspect. It also means the potential to offer advanced space services, perhaps docking services, to other nations down the line.
A move towards self-reliance and leadership.
Definitely. In advanced space operations, yes.
It's incredible to think about the precision required. From the final frontier, let's come back down to Earth and discuss another strategic ambition: securing vital resources. Our next headline from Source 9 details India's plan to tackle a critical economic and strategic vulnerability. Its dependence on China for rare earth minerals.
Yes, the rare earths issue. Very important.
India is finalizing a 5,000 crore scheme that's roughly 600 million US dollars. Quite significant.
A substantial investment.
To reduce this dependence. This scheme is expected to be approved within 2 weeks. And these minerals, as the source notes, are crucial for electric vehicles, wind turbines, basically all the green energy infrastructure.
Absolutely essential for modern tech.
So why is this dependence such a strategic vulnerability, especially given China's recent export restrictions we've heard about?
Well, India's reliance on China for rare earth minerals is indeed a significant strategic vulnerability, primarily because China effectively holds a near monopoly on their production and processing.
How much do they control?
Estimates vary, but it's often cited as controlling around 70–80% of the global supply chain. So when China imposes export restrictions, as it has done periodically,
It sends ripples everywhere.
exactly, it can severely disrupt global supply chains for critical green technologies like EVs, advanced electronics, wind turbines, even defense applications.
Okay, and what's India's projected demand for these rare earths? The source mentioned figures.
It did. India's projected domestic demand is set to rise sharply from about 4,010 metric tons in 2025 to 8,220 metric tons by 2030.
That's more than doubling in just 5 years.
Correct. And currently, over 50% of this demand comes from EV and wind energy manufacturers within India.
So any disruption from China directly hits India's own green energy goals.
Precisely. It impacts India's ambitious goals for clean energy transition, industrial growth, and achieving greater energy independence. It's a bottleneck.
So this new initiative aims to stimulate domestic production. The source mentions a reverse bidding mechanism to encourage private sector participation. But how challenging is it really to build an entire domestic rare earth supply chain when another country has such a dominant near monopoly and, frankly, decades of head start in this highly specialized area?
Oh, it is an incredibly challenging endeavor. Make no mistake. It requires a multifaceted approach and critically significant long-term commitment.
It's not just finding the minerals, right?
Not at all. Building an entire domestic rare earth supply chain requires massive investment in every single stage, from exploration and mining of the raw ores
Step 1.
to the complex and often environmentally sensitive processing facilities needed to separate and refine the different rare earth elements.
Which is notoriously difficult.
It is. And then finally, you need advanced manufacturing capabilities for derived products like the powerful permanent magnets used in EVs and turbines.
So the whole value chain.
The entire value chain. China has invested heavily in this sector for decades, developing proprietary technologies, refining extraction methods, establishing economies of scale that's extremely hard to replicate quickly.
So what's India doing specifically with this scheme?
Well, the plan includes amending the Mines and Minerals Development and Regulation Act. That's the legal framework to facilitate exploration and production.
Policy levers.
Right. And there's already financial support being extended to companies like Midwest Advanced Materials in Hyderabad. The source anticipates limited but commercially viable production of rare earth permanent magnets starting later this year.
So some progress already.
Seems so. And apparently at least 5 major Indian companies have expressed informal interest in participating, which indicates a nascent but growing domestic capability and appetite.
Okay, so it's a multi-pronged approach policy, funding, encouraging private players.
Exactly. It has to be.
In the broader context, what are the geopolitical implications of nations like India trying to break free from Chinese dominance in this sector? Is this a global trend we're seeing?
Yes, absolutely. This strategic investment in rare earths by India is part of a much broader global effort. Many nations, including the US, Europe, Japan, Australia, are actively working to diversify critical mineral supply chains.
De-risking, basically.
Precisely. Enhancing self-reliance and countering China's near monopoly. This policy shift marks a significant pivot in India's critical minerals strategy, combining regulatory reform, industrial incentives, and targeted funding to secure long-term resource resilience.
What does this mean geopolitically?
The geopolitical implications are profound. It represents a global strategic decoupling, or at least an attempted decoupling, in a vital economic sector. Nations are realizing that dependence on a single supplier for such fundamental components of future technologies, from defense to clean energy, is a major national security risk.
Makes sense.
So this push for diversification could lead to new alliances and partnerships focused on critical mineral security, increased exploration efforts in other parts of the world, and potentially a more fragmented but ultimately perhaps more resilient global supply chain for green technologies.
A race for resource independence.
Absolutely. And technological sovereignty in the 21st century.
Fascinating. From these huge strategic resources, let's turn now to a very specific, rather intriguing incident involving cutting-edge defense technology. Our next story from Source 8 sounds like something out of a, well, maybe not a spy thriller, but definitely an unusual situation. A Royal Navy F-35 fighter jet remains stranded at Thiruvananthapuram Airport in Kerala.
Stranded.
F-35.
Yes, due to an unresolved hydraulic malfunction. This advanced aircraft, which had landed during a routine visit, has apparently defied repair efforts by engineers from its carrier.
Wow, even the carrier engineers couldn't fix it.
Seems not. The jet is currently parked in Bay 4, apparently not disrupting commercial operations, which is good.
Small mercies.
But this marks the first time a U.S.-made F-35 has been stranded in a foreign country, and it's drawing significant attention. Now, a hydraulic malfunction sounds relatively simple on the surface, but on an F-35, what's the real big deal here? Well, what makes this seemingly mundane hydraulic malfunction so significant is the aircraft itself. The F-35, as you know, is a stealth, multi-role combat aircraft. It's among the most sophisticated military jets globally.
Top-tier tech.
Absolutely. Its systems are incredibly complex and deeply integrated. This probably isn't just about a leaky pipe, you know? It's likely a complex interplay within the aircraft's advanced avionics and mechanical systems. That makes troubleshooting a potential nightmare, especially when you're away from its specialized home base infrastructure.
So it needs special tools, special expertise.
Almost certainly. The sources indicate that various teams have attempted fixes without success, which underscores the proprietary nature and intricate design of its components. This incident kind of exposes a hidden strategic vulnerability inherent in cutting-edge military tech. That hyper-advanced proprietary systems dictate a level of logistical interdependence among allies that can unexpectedly ground invaluable assets far from home. It reveals that the reach of modern air power is directly limited by the depth and global presence of its most specialized, often country-specific, maintenance support.
You can fly anywhere, but can you fix it anywhere?
That's the crux of it, yes.
So what are the next steps for this very expensive, very sophisticated, and very stranded aircraft, given that even the carrier's engineers couldn't fix it?
Well, the authorities are now considering moving the jet to a hangar.
So they're settling in for a longer stay?
That anticipates a longer stay, yes, and further signals the complexity of the issue. Most importantly, specialized technicians from the UK and the US are scheduled to conduct further inspections.
Bringing in the big guns.
Literally. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the involvement of UK and US specialists points to a broader transnational maintenance framework.
What does that mean?
It means a support system that is absolutely necessary for operating fifth-generation fighter jets like the F-35, particularly in unfamiliar environments or allied territory. These aircraft are so advanced that their maintenance requires a level of expertise and equipment that often transcends national capabilities, even for close allies like the UK.
So cooperation is built in.
Deeply. This underscores the incredible operational sensitivity involved. What broader implications does this have for global defense cooperation and logistics? It means that operating such advanced platforms inherently ties nations into complex support networks.
You buy the plane, you buy into the network.
Pretty much. It requires deep collaboration in maintenance, training, troubleshooting. Any issue, even a seemingly minor one like hydraulics on paper, can become a significant international logistical challenge, highlighting the high cost and intricate dependencies of modern military power projection.
It's a real testament to how globally interconnected defense systems are becoming, even down to a single aircraft stranded on a tarmac.
A very visible example.
Okay, from a high-tech dilemma in aviation, let's turn to a story of cultural preservation and global academic recognition. Our next headline, from Source 3, shines a light on a landmark act of philanthropy. A tech entrepreneur, Sabrizan Vedamurthy, and an educationist, Senthamarai Salan, have endowed the University of Cambridge with funding to advance global academic study on the Dravidian movement.
At Cambridge, that's significant.
It is. For listeners less familiar, the Dravidian movement is a powerful, century-old socio-political force from southern India. It champions social justice, self-respect, linguistic identity, and it profoundly shaped the state of Tamil Nadu.
A hugely influential movement in Indian history.
This donation establishes a permanent PhD studentship and supports postdoctoral research. And the focus is precisely on its socio-political and economic legacies, and how it significantly influenced Tamil Nadu's development since Indian independence.
A focused academic initiative.
What's the significance of this particular research focus being established at a place like Cambridge?
Well, the significance of this research focus, particularly at a prestigious global institution like Cambridge, really cannot be overstated.
Why is that?
It underscores the international academic community's growing recognition of the Dravidian movement's unique and influential model of social transformation and governance. It wasn't just politics, it was deep social change.
A model worth studying globally.
Exactly. The research will delve into how Dravidian politics specifically influenced Tamil Nadu's development, exploring areas like the evolution of its political thought, how it built state capacity, the dynamics of caste within that context, its specific public policy formulations, and the methods of grassroots mobilization it used.
Lots to unpack there.
Absolutely. This provides a rich historical and contemporary case study that can inform global discussions on equity, dignity, and transformative governance, importantly, moving beyond purely Western-centric models of development and social change.
Offering different perspectives. And the initiative is named in honor of M. Karunanidhi, who was a 5-time Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu and a towering figure in the movement.
A key architect.
How does this endowment commemorate his commitment to social justice, access to education, and inclusive economic growth? The source mentions it prioritizes students from disadvantaged backgrounds.
Yes, the M. Karunanidhi scholarships are designed to specifically honor his lifelong commitment to those ideals. By prioritizing students from socially and economically disadvantaged backgrounds for the PhD studentship.
It lives the values.
Exactly. The endowment directly reflects his vision for universal access to education and upliftment. This raises an interesting question, doesn't it?
Which is?
How does making this a permanent feature at a prestigious global institution like Cambridge not only honor his legacy, but also ensure that the principles of equity and dignity, which were central to the Dravidian movement, continue to be explored and disseminated on a global academic stage?
Taking it beyond Tamil Nadu, beyond India.
Essentially, yes. It transforms a regional history into a global case study for transformative governance, allowing its lessons, its successes, maybe even its failures, to be applied and understood far beyond India's borders.
So, in the broader context, what does it really mean to globalize the study of such a transformative social movement? What impact might this have on mainstream scholarship, which often overlooks these regional histories?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, Cambridge faculty, including Professor Tim Harper and Professor Shruti Kapikila, who were mentioned in the source,
Yeah.
they've explicitly underscored the importance of the Dravidian model in global academic discourse, highlighting its relevance beyond India. This endowment reflects a broader and I think welcome shift towards recognizing South Asia's diverse internal histories.
Not just a monolithic view.
Exactly, and elevating regional narratives that have, as the source puts it, often been overshadowed in mainstream scholarship. To globalize the study of such a movement means extracting potentially universal lessons from a specific cultural and historical context.
Finding the transferable insights.
Precisely. It allows the insights from the Dravidian movement, for example, on how to challenge social hierarchies, promote inclusive growth, empower marginalized communities through political action, to contribute to global conversations about how societies can achieve more equitable and just futures.
It helps decolonize knowledge, too, perhaps.
I think that's a very valid point. It shows that important lessons on social justice and governance aren't found exclusively in Western models, but are rich and varied across the world. It validates diverse experiences.
It's an incredible story, really. A regional movement gaining that kind of permanent global academic recognition.
A powerful statement through philanthropy.
Okay, from academic deep dives, let's move to the deep dives, cutters, and drives on the cricket pitch. Our final headline, from Source 1, brings us to the exciting and sometimes agonizing world of Test cricket.
Ah, the first test.
Yes, day 2 of the first test between India and England. And England has responded strongly after being, well, distinctly on the back foot on day 1.
A classic test match turnaround.
Seems like it. India, resuming at a commanding 3,593, were eventually all out for 471. A good total.
Solid score, built on centuries.
Exactly. Centuries from Shubman Gill, 147, Rishabh Pant with a typically flamboyant 134, and Yashasvi Jaiswal with 101 at the top. 3 centurions.
You'd think they'd get a massive score from there.
You would. But then something truly dramatic happened. India went from 43-03, cruising, to losing their last 7 wickets for just 41 runs.
41 runs. For 7 wickets? Ouch.
Ouch is right. The source notes this marks the lowest test total ever by a team with 3 centurions, an unwanted record.
That's astonishing. Who did the damage for England?
Josh Tongue and Ben Stokes were key, apparently, with 4 wickets each. So India seemed to be cruising. Gill and Pant had that huge partnership. Then suddenly the wheels just completely fell off. What happened there? Was it a tactical masterclass or sheer pressure?
Well, what happened there was a classic test match collapse. A very stark reminder of how quickly momentum can shift in this format, isn't it? India was in a commanding position, 43-03, 3 batsmen reaching centuries, which is a rare and celebratory feat in itself.
Setting things up nicely.
Or so they thought. The fact that they then lost 7 wickets for only 41 runs indicates either a sudden collective lapse in concentration by the Indian batsmen, maybe aggressive shots going awry under building pressure.
Trying to push the score too quickly.
Possibly, or it could just be exceptional, relentless bowling and fielding from England. The source specifically credits Josh Tongue and Ben Stokes with 4 wickets each.
Right, they share the spoils.
Indicating they truly exploited any weaknesses that appeared and triggered that collapse through disciplined lines and lengths, perhaps combined with strategic field settings from Stokes. It's a testament to how Test cricket can turn on a dime.
So England capitalized on that collapse, but their reply didn't start smoothly either, did it?
No, the pendulum swung again initially.
Jasprit Bumrah dismissed Zach Crowley early, keeping India in it, but then, crucially, dropped catches proved costly for India.
Dropped catches, the bane of fielding sides.
Tell me about it. Ben Duckett made a good 50 before Bumrah got him eventually on 62, and then Ollie Pope came in, apparently unfazed,
Pope's been in good form.
and brought up a brisk century off just 125 balls, unbeaten on 100 at the close, guiding England to 2093 at Scumps.
A brilliant counter-attacking innings, then.
Seems like it. What is this kind of massive swing in momentum from 43-03 collapse to 2093 recovery? Tell us about the psychology and strategy of Test cricket over 5 long days.
Oh, it clearly highlights the immense psychological aspect of Test cricket. England's early shakiness after India's big total, coupled with those couple of dropped catches that could have derailed their innings completely.
They could have folded.
Easily. But their ability to absorb that pressure, crucially capitalize on India's errors, those dropped catches, and then build crucial partnerships, especially the one involving Duckett and Pope, was fundamental.
Pope stepping up.
Yes, Pope in particular demonstrating that unfazed and brisk batting under pressure was a masterclass in seizing the momentum back. This kind of swing underscores that Test cricket is as much a mental game as it is physical.
The mental battle.
Absolutely. The capacity to reset after setbacks, maintain concentration over long periods, and for individual brilliance like Pope's century to ignite a team's morale and strategic approach. These are all absolutely critical elements.
It raises the question.
It does. How do teams mentally recover from such collapses like India suffered? And then conversely, how do they maintain the pressure once they've gained it, like England did later? It's this continuous ebb and flow, a strategic chess match played out over days, not hours.
It sounds like maybe India's bowlers, apart from Bumrah, lost their way a bit after that early spell. The source mentioned Mohammad Siraj and Prasidh Krishna were expensive.
That seems to be the case. While Bumrah continued to be a consistent threat, he got Joe Root out again, too. Apparently his 10th dismissal by Bumrah in tests.
Bumrah owns Root.
Looks like it statistically. But yes, Bumrah's early breakthroughs weren't capitalized on by the other bowlers like Siraj and Krishna, who were reported as expensive.
Letting the pressure off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This allowed England's batsmen, particularly Pope, to rotate the strike easily, settle in, and build their innings, effectively releasing the pressure that Bumrah had initially created. This really highlights the importance of a collective, sustained bowling effort in test matches. Individual brilliance often isn't enough.
Need the whole attack firing.
Precisely. So if we connect this to the bigger picture, England, despite still trailing by 262 runs, has undeniable momentum going into day 3, thanks largely to Pope's unbeaten century and their remarkable recovery from that early wobble.
So what does this mean for the rest of the match? It felt like India's game to lose earlier.
Well, it means the match is now finally poised. It's certainly no longer just India's to lose. England will aim to bat deep on day 3, try to reduce that deficit significantly, maybe even get close to India's total, and put immense pressure back on India in their second innings.
Turn the tables completely.
That'll be the aim. How individual performances like Pope's century influence the team's morale and overall game plan is critical. It gives the entire team belief and a platform to build upon. It transforms a potentially grim situation after India's first innings score into a promising one. It suggests this match is far from over. Game on.
Absolutely. What a day of headlines. From the geopolitical chessboard to the intricacies of space docking to the drama on the cricket pitch, we've covered a tremendous amount today. Hashtag Shag Outro.
We certainly have.
And that brings us to the end of another, I think, captivating deep dive. We've journeyed through those geopolitical shifts hinted at in the unilateral ending of water treaties and the diplomatic tightrope India walks in foreign policy regarding Iran and Israel.
Major shifts there.
We've explored internal debates on electoral integrity, that ECI versus Gandhi clash, and the strategic use of social welfare programs like the Bihar pension hike as political tools.
Domestic dynamics are always key.
Then we launched into India's ambitious strides in space, pushing the boundaries of orbital docking with SpaceX-2 and its crucial efforts to secure vital rare earth minerals, reducing that dependence on China.
Technological and strategic autonomy goals, very prominent.
And of course, we wrapped up with the unfolding drama and those wild momentum swings on the cricket pitch. Each headline, when you unpack it, truly reveals layers of complexity and interconnectedness
You really do.
that you just don't get from a quick glance at the newsfeed.
Indeed. From a potentially permanent shift in water diplomacy that will undoubtedly reshape regional dynamics, to the intricate technical challenges of elliptical space docking that will define India's future as a space power. What we've explored today shows India as a nation actively and assertively shaping its future on multiple fronts.
Domestically and globally.
Both, if we connect this to the bigger picture. These headlines collectively illustrate a nation that is assertive in protecting its interests, innovative in pursuing technological independence, and grappling quite publicly with the internal mechanisms and challenges of its vast and vibrant democracy.
A lot happening all at once.
A defining characteristic, perhaps.
So a final thought for you, our listener, to mull over. As you consider these headlines, ask yourself, in a world of increasing complexity and interconnectedness, what does India's assertive pursuit of self-reliance, whether we're talking about water, rare earths, or advanced space technology, what does that pursuit mean for its global partnerships and the broader balance of power in the coming decades?
A crucial question to ponder. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.